Saddle up your horses.
Pitter patter, let's get at her. It is another episode of the Manely Broncos Podcast, and we have a full house tonight for the first time in a long time. Matty Mulls had a lot of family stuff to deal with in terms of moving and getting resituated again back in where it all began, if you will, for both Matty and I. And so he is back in the lovely state of Nebraska, and he is back with us over at the Manely Broncos Podcast. So before I introduce the loser on the right over here on the top right, how is Matty doing? It feels good to be back, I'm sure.
Back in Omaha. It's
Omaha.
It's pretty dope to be back. The way the military works, it's kind of funny, just when you think you know how things are going to shake out, they zig. When you think they're going to zag, I didn't know I was going to get back here. Certainly didn't know it would be back here for my last tour in the military. So 3 last years, and then I'm going to be retiring from active duty. And I'll figure out what I'm going to do after that. I've been enrolled in real estate school, so I'm going to see if that sticks. But yeah, just a lot of life changes. I've missed you guys, but I'm very excited to get back in the swing of things, just as the Broncos are, and right before the season. So it's going to be hopefully a more joyous occasion week in and week out than it has been over the last, 7 years.
You start losing track. I think it's like 8, but yeah.
Eternity.
Yeah.
Forever.
So basically what Matty is trying to say, because this is not just a Broncos preseason, this is also now officially a preseason for Matty to get back into the swing of things. Although if you were with us in the green room, we can officially tell you like he's back. Like if we could pull up the John Wick clip, where he's captured and he goes, "Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back." That's basically Matty.
I wish I had thought to do that in advance.
So we have time. We definitely have time. By the way, this is a reminder. Once again, we haven't shown it in a bit, but we've definitely done it a bit as far as talked about it. But friendly reminder that if you guys are watching on Twitter, first things first, thank you guys for tuning in terms of Twitter. But sadly, if you guys are commenting, those days of Periscope are over. Those comments will sadly not be shown for us. But you guys will, have your comments. They'll be shown. And so if you want to do that, go hop over to the Facebook Live section of Manely Broncos Podcast, the MHRT Network, or go over to the MHRT Network on YouTube. Click that subscribe button, by the way, and jump into the stream that is the Manely Broncos Podcast and the Broncos and 49ers preview, if you will. But yeah, so go in, hop in there, and let's ride. We'll have a joyous time. So thank you guys again for dropping up with this. Yeah, so no Frankie tonight, Ty. We did post something on Twitter about it. He was not feeling all the greatest. So it was a premature tease. That's probably the best way to say it. It was a premature tease. So
Cameron Parker is just a tease. That's all he does. That's all he does here. He has nothing other value. A nutless monkey could do his job. I told you I'd get it in. I told you I'd get one in.
I know Matty was thinking it, but all I could think of is the scene in Toy Story 3 where the monkey is just clanking the what is it? I forget what it's called, but he's clanking the instruments together. And he's just he's in his own little world, basically. That's basically what I can think of right now.
But you got the Tropic Thunder quote though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I was like,
well, and by the way,
tell me you didn't just miss.
By the way, okay, so before we dive into before we dive into the Broncos stuff, Matty, why don't you kind of fill us in a little bit about what is going on with maybe the greatest podcast name on the planet aside from Manely?
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
which would be Topic Thunder.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, Topic Thunder. The boys have been holding it down. I've been absent from that too, just with all the life things going on. But at OKC Topic Thunder, where we steal a lot from Tropic Thunder, one of the greatest cinematic adventures in all of history. Boys been holding it down, specifically at Thunder Chats. So he's an OG. He actually helped get me started in podcasting, and all of that. So a lot going on over there, as you know, FIBA and all that stuff's underway. So go give them a listen if you like talking ball. If you know ball, interact.
They also changed their name to Thunder Chats, and that's just legendary.
Yeah, had to.
By the way,
names in that whole podcast, just organization out of this world.
By the way, yes, Ty, Matty does not look like Frankie. We love you. So thank you, at least, for appreciating the fact that he does not look like Frankie, because there is only one person who looks like Frankie. We all know this. There's only one person that looks like Frankie, and it is Timothée Chalamet, the guy who plays in Dune. Like that, he's the only person that actually looks like Frankie. That's just a known fact. And even he will tell you this.
You know, I think he also looks like Timothée Chalamet. I'm just guessing on that one, but
yeah. All right, boys. Let's get into this. The Broncos kicked off the Sean Payton era against the Arizona Cardinals. A lot was certainly to do about that football field. There wasn't actually a lot of injuries per se, but I mean, you know, hey, they were able to get that game underway. There was a lot of time to be had as far as special teams that we'll end up talking, you know, about, of course. But
I was holding my breath the whole game.
Yeah. So, what is the first takeaway in terms of the game that you guys want to talk about from the Broncos and Cardinals perspective? Matty, why don't you go first? It's been a while.
I want to let Matty go first.
Okay. All right. It is so damn nice to have an adult in the building who manages the clock, understands situational football, and has guys ready to go. So there was a time in the game where, you know, if you're under like a minute or 2 minutes or whatever, and you have a procedure penalty and the clock is running, there's a 10-second runoff, right? That's just how it goes. We had a false start, getting ready to get lined up for a third down. They called the penalty on us, and then they assessed the 10-second runoff. We did as they were talking through all of that, Coach Payton was like, let's go. Basically meaning like, we have the play in, let's get lined up so we can snap this thing right when we can. And we did. We ran the play, and then we had to be in a position to run our special teams onto the field to attempt a field goal. And we were ready to execute. We were getting ready to get lined up. We still had time. It wasn't going to be rushed. Probably would have missed the damn thing anyway with how the game went. But it was there. And then the Cardinals called the timeout, which, you know, we've been on the other side of that. We're like, why would we call a timeout and let them get set up? But the Broncos were ready to go. They understood the down and distance. They understood the situation with the clock running down. They understood how to manage all of that, right? You would think Nathaniel Hackett, Mr. Bucket Hat guy, which we might talk about later, completely fumbled that situation a lot last year. Baffling to me, being a coach's son, how you don't know how to game manage. But Sean Payton does. And that's going to be a force multiplier for us moving forward. This was a preseason game. Yes, we lost. Spoiler alert. But it doesn't matter. It was just nice to have somebody there that's not going to be an embarrassment to the team.
Yeah.
You're muted, bro.
Yeah, you're muted, Brandon.
Yeah, being able to watch every play where I don't have to think, I wonder if we'll get this one in time.
Yeah,
is a blessing that is way too easy to take for granted.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think let's lead off with one of the things that didn't get exactly much publicity, if you will, because in terms of just maybe even some people on the podcast and stuff, and we talked about it as far as like a little bit at the end of the show on 5280, but I thought one of the underrated things that I saw from preseason before we like dive into the nitty gritty was from a starter's perspective and just kind of like the first half perspective. When we talk about discipline and we talk about getting plays in, one of the other things that I thought was a big thing for this team was penalties. And after the end of the first half, the Broncos only had 2 penalties after the first half. And that's a big deal for a team, and especially believing in the culture and the discipline of Sean Payton. Only 2 penalties, within that first half. I will gladly take that.
Well, 2 that were called. I feel like they could have called at least one more on someone we'll talk about at some point today.
One more in the end zone.
Oh, no, I'm not even talking about that.
By the way,
we'll get into it.
By the way, the other takeaway that I thought was the smart uses of challenges, which, by the way, I thought that actually he was short on that challenge, but the referees decided to say that he got the first down when Payton threw the flag. But, as we all know, it's the preseason for the referees as well. But so I thought that it was just to piggyback off of Matty, it was just once again, one of those cases where you just felt so glad to see Sean Payton, as the head coach in Denver. And one thing too that I'm sure all of us will talk, and it's probably worth talking about right now, is this notion about leaving all the starters in for a rather length of time. And so in terms of actually talking about whether or not this is Sean Payton's team, we already had an idea this was Sean Payton's team. You don't need to look no further than we're not wearing bucket hats on the sideline. We're not doing player interviews during the preseason. You don't need to look no further than that. But in terms of this actually being Sean Payton's team and him wanting to get the chemistry and his guys, going, you don't need to look no further than having those starters play a rather lengthy period of time.
Well, the more he watched, the more he realizes these guys need game reps. That's my opinion of it, because that's definitely what I thought. Like, just jump right into it. Biggest takeaways, like the offensive line was atrocious. It was very, very, very bad. And the penalty that I was talking about that should have been called was Garrett Bowles holding number 72. Fake laugh fighting real pain. Because he definitely got away with at least one that I saw. It was not great.
Was that the Judy play?
I think it was. I want to give him some benefit of the doubt, because it was first game back off of a broken leg. It's going to take some time. So I'm not hitting the panic button. Like I've seen people hitting the panic button. I'm like, it's preseason. It's game 1 of preseason.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's people out there shocked, like they see the touchdown to Judy. They're like, oh my God, they're still playing. They're still in the game. I'm like, of course, yes. The coach saw that they were struggling and wanted to give them more actual valuable reps, like more game reps in a meaningless game to try to gel. So I don't know. I mean, that whole thing about how long they stayed in the game and people trying to take something away from that of like, oh, well, I think he thinks that, whatever the takeaway is from that you've seen people say, really the biggest thing is he just saw that they needed the practice and he tried to give them more practice. That's really what it was. But yeah, we need more practice. The offensive line was atrocious. The defensive line was pretty good in some areas and less good in other areas.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely some standouts like Nick Bonito. Mm-hmm. I am so excited to see that.
Where'd he go to school, Matty? Where'd he go to school?
Boomer.
I forgot about that. Welcome back, Matty.
Yeah.
Nick Bonito was really, really good. I kind of felt like we would have seen more from Zach Allen, but again, one preseason game, we'll see. Yeah. But just the line play and then the kicking was like an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah.
So it was, but we'll, what did you guys think? I mean, those were kind of the broad strokes, and we'll get more into it, but
with the longevity that the players were out there, first of all, we knew immediately when Russ went back to throw like his very first pass attempt and he missed a wide open Jerry Jeudy. I was like PTSDing. I was like, here we are. Jeudy got separation again. We've been talking about how he's going to be more involved and he's going to be a focus on this offense. And there he is. He can't get more open. Jeudy also had a drop, whatever. He made up for it like immediately after, but you could tell that they were rusty. A lot of players might be kind of offended in that situation. Like, why am I still out here, bro?
Yeah.
But Peyton's like, I think Peyton was like along those same lines that you were thinking. You didn't earn that rest. What are you talking about? You haven't earned the right for your night to be done yet. So I think it's great. I loved that he kept them out there. And yes, they were going against second and third stringers by that point, but like, that's kind of an embarrassment in its own right, where you can't even like finish the deal against second and third stringers. And these are our starters outside of a few guys dealing with injury.
Yeah.
We're supposed to compete with the champs here. That's our standard. All right, get your butt out there for another series.
And it kind of goes back to a really common point that I've been making. And that is like, if Sean Payton, if they chose not to hire Sean Payton, they chose to hire Sean Payton last year, and not Nathaniel Hackett, and then traded for Russell Wilson, I probably would have been okay with them not playing the starters, given the fact about like, with where things were. How you doing, John? I just think that with where things were and with where the team was coming off of last season and now trading for Sean Payton, they had to do everything in their power to make sure that the offense, which is going to be the starting unit, absolutely gels, as much as it can. So it only confirmed the idea of how much they truly needed those preseason reps, even dating back to last year. And even for Russ, despite all of the offensive line play, which, by the way, if you go look at a statistic from pretty well-known Russ hater on Twitter, I mean, let's be honest, Warren Sharp.
Everyone's a Russ hater, man. Are you kidding?
But I mean, he had a very unreal statistic, and Jarrett Stidham falls in this category as well, who played terrible. But it was that Stidham and Russ especially, Russ led everybody in terms of the most pressured quarterback from week 1 of the preseason. Like, that alone should tell you.
Jarrett Stidham was like 4th or something on that list.
He was definitely inside the top 10, and Ben DiNucci was like rather near the bottom, which is something that, in terms of if you want to talk about some of the offensive line play, and as far as the offensive line play in general, it is funny. We mentioned this on 5280, but it is funny how of all the position groups that performed the best, it was the center of attention being that center position with Lloyd Cushenberry, Luke Wattenberg, and Alex Forsythe playing really well. So I thought that was a little bit interesting to see.
Wattenberg had some bad reps, but Lloyd, he did play pretty well, which was nice to see because like that was my position that I was watching and like mentioned as the guy that's going to need to show something in this game. And I think he definitely proved that, he's probably the starter for this entire season, unless Forsythe comes in and just like absolutely wins outright, which I guess could happen still. Like, I still believe in Forsythe, but I do think Lloyd is better.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the line, unfortunately, maybe not so much. Like, it was kind of strange. Ben Powers was not good, which it was really surprising. And like, that's another kind of one of those, it's one game, it's preseason. Like, you can't really jump to any conclusions. It takes time for a line to gel overall. He's in a new system.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the player that you saw didn't just disappear when we got him from Baltimore. Like, he's still a good guard.
Yeah.
But he definitely didn't have a good game. Really, the rest of the entire line, besides Lloyd, were bad, which is
well,
we can't win apparently. But no, Lloyd had a good game.
And not just the pressure rate, right? But when we were able to get the ball off, so many batted balls at the line of scrimmage. Like that means that either Russ isn't where he needs to be in his drop and progression for a specific passing lane, or the line is just losing the point of attack and those lanes are going backwards. And like Peyton understands how to draw up an offense to allow a quarterback that is vertically challenged to be able to get throws off. Drew Brees really never had the ball batted.
Yeah.
And like, it was just like every third or fourth attempt, it felt like there was some type of a tip that happened on the ball. So that's going to obviously have to get cleaned up too.
I think there were only 2 official batted balls that I saw. And then there was that one that was
felt like more
tipped.
It felt like everything was,
By the way,
it probably felt like more because they were always in his face.
By the way,
pressure was horrific.
By the way, thank you, Clayton. Yeah, smash that like button, share, tell your friends, have your friends tell your friends about the Manely Broncos podcast. By the other thing that I noticed about Russ, and especially, and maybe this was him sort of adjusting to the fact that, you know, there were some batted passes at the line of scrimmage, but I will say, did it seem like he had a lot more zip on the ball than last year? Like it seemed like he was throwing with intent, and it seemed like he was throwing with the ball to get to its destination. And he was decisive. And I think that that's probably the most important takeaway is like, he was decisive. And you also saw players like Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy doing something that Tim Jenkins was not the biggest fan of. This was before even Nathaniel Hackett was here, but it was the scramble drill. Like those are big things that I thought were some of the big takeaways as far as on the positive front that were big. I mean, Cortland Sutton, you know, finishing his comeback route, Jerry Jeudy, you know, even though he dropped the pass, the play before the touchdown, Russ was getting ready to roll to his right. Jeudy recognized the fact that he was rolling to his right, adjusted his route, and was wide open. May have actually even scored on that play, even with the drop.
That was the Jeudy drop. Yeah.
And I mean, but he dropped it, and the rest is history, obviously. And then Russ ended up putting his hand on his shoulder, showing true leadership. You know, there, and then saying, we'll get you the ball, you know, sooner rather than later. And then,
there were definitely some good plays that Russ had. I mean, just overall, I think Russ actually looked fine. He wasn't horrific. I mean, he wasn't lighting the game on fire by any means, but he was good. Like, he definitely looked like he had a bit more zip. Is he probably because he's moving with less weight? He's moving less weight around when he throws the ball.
Yeah.
Because he's slimmer. But he definitely had a good game. He had like a couple of inaccurate passes that were like I think it was the very first pass that was over to. Wow, man, I can't remember exactly who it was. It was like a bit behind him. He was a little off, but I mean, that was the very first pass of the game.
Probably supposed to have been caught, but yeah, it was.
Yeah. He also had some reads that like could have been better. Like he had when he did throw to Troutman, when he had I think it was primarily Cortland was like the guy who was supposed to be the read, and he was open 8 yards further downfield, like wide open, and Russ just kind of tossed it underneath lower to Troutman. And then there was also where he tries to throw it. It's funny. He throws the tight end when the other guy's open, and then he tries to throw it to the other guy when the tight end's open, because he had another one later on that line where like Dulcich is basically like wide open in the middle of the field. And he tried to throw it deep to Sutton. That was that pass where like he basically threw it over everyone and it ended in the end zone. He had the defender trying to run underneath it. It wasn't going to be intercepted, I don't think. But on that one, like he had a play he could have taken. But other than that, I mean, he had a pretty good game.
Yeah.
Like he had some nice throws to Cortland. He had that Jerry Jeudy drop. He had that nice throw, then coming back to Jeudy for the touchdown. He threw a lot in the middle of the field. Like that was a big concern with Russ overall the past couple of years. It's like he just does not throw over the middle of the field. He also apparently doesn't throw to tight ends. So he threw to tight ends over the middle of the field. I think, honestly, I think he'll be fine. Like I'm excited to see where we go from here. I'm excited to see more in the rushing game. I kind of feel like we didn't do as much on the ground as I thought we would. Not that we didn't run the plays, but like we didn't have as much success. But
if
we'll see
only
what
there
happens.
were reinforcements coming on the ground.
Don't jinx it. Don't jinx it.
Speaking of Boomer Sooner, though, and the rushing game, one of the positive players from this preseason was Samaje Perine. He looked pretty good. I mean, there was that one run that he had specifically that it was almost like you're looking at a carbon copy of Javonte Williams. He looked like he was down. It was about a 5-yard run, if I'm not mistaken. It was like 2nd and 5. And he fought for those extra yards, got the first down. It was a carbon copy of Javonte, which that's been some of the things that, like, when we had signed Perine, and this is from the positive side, like, I thought that, like, when people were making the point about everybody was talking about Javonte and his ability to finish runs, people were forgetting about what Perine was giving them or going to be giving them. And that is that ability for those tough, hard-nosed yards. So when you do have the ability to just be that ground and pound and punishing football team, what you saw there as far as those hard-nosed 5 yards, that's not just going to be just Javonte Williams. That's going to be Perine.
Yeah, I mean,
looked like
we'll talk about Javonte. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said it looked like it was Angry Runs preseason edition.
Yeah,
I loved it.
But we all know that Kyle Bryant is not going to give it to a Bronco anymore. So,
okay, do we want to just briefly touch on this?
That
whole Gilligan hats and sunglasses thing has been blown so far out of proportion. It's like not even in the same galaxy anymore.
Yeah,
I don't like. Do people really think that Sean Payton gives a shit about Gilligan hats? Like, I don't think he has a personal vendetta against them.
No,
I think the underlying message to his team was just don't take a play. Like, don't take it off. Don't slack around. Like, once you get out of the game, if you're a starter, we play for a few series, you get out of the game, stay ready, keep your pads on. Don't be over there just like jerking around and being acting like, oh, well, I'm not going to go back in. Now I'm on vacation. I don't have to do anything. Like, that's what the underlying message was. It's pretty obvious to me, but apparently to everyone else is like literally something about you can't wear sunglasses, which is just stupid. Like there's no way he enforces that. He doesn't give a shit about that. And you can't wear Gilligan hats. And then there's the whole thing of like Kyle Brandt bringing up 14 times, oh, well, Garrett Wilson's is, wearing a Gilligan hat and sunglasses. Is that a thing against Sean Payton? Like, please, I'm so ready for actual games. I'm so tired of this. No more off-season making up content. Like, that's not what he meant.
I'm ready for PS2 to get on the sticks and shut his ass down.
That'll be so much
I am
fun.
so ready.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson, 7 targets because Aaron Rodgers is stubborn. 2 catches for 19 yards. And he's probably going to get one of those first downs early, and it's going to like stun around, and then PS2 is going to shut his ass down the rest of the game.
Well, by the way, when Garrett Wilson is going to the media and he smiles and he's wearing the bucket hat and he's asked about it, and he says, I can't really talk about that. Like, that alone tells you why Sean Payton also said what he said. Like truthfully, like, when you make those kinds of statements and you're playfully going about this, like, that's the sole reason why Sean Payton makes those kind of statements. And so with
the ironic thing about it is him doing that is literally him doing what Sean Payton is preaching not to do.
Exactly.
Don't take the rest of the game off. Don't just mess around and waste your time. Like, pay attention to what we're running, stay ready, take it seriously. And he didn't do that. Like, everyone wants to point to is like, oh, it's a shot because he did exactly what Sean Payton said not to do, which is wear the sunglasses and the Gilligan hat. No. He did exactly what Sean Payton said not to do, which is mess around and give a meaningless interview and don't pay attention to your game. It's so funny.
Yeah, exactly. All I know is, look, I'm not the biggest Hard Knocks fan, but I will say there is like part of me that wants the Broncos to be chosen as the midseason team so we can see some of the pushback from some of the stuff like internally, with Sean Payton and the Broncos, just to fire back at what, is going to happen with the New York Jets in terms of what happened in the preseason, not to mention with it being midseason, if they wanted to start it off with week 5, that would be amazing as far as like the kickoff episode to get fans just absolutely like into the Hard Knocks mid-season with the Broncos. So again, I'm not the biggest fan of like the whole Hard Knocks stuff, but as far as like from the ratings perspective too, you could not have asked for a better football team if you decided to choose the Broncos.
I got the transition already. Rodgers drops back. He's getting pressured. He's locked onto 17. He forces the ball to the sideline and interception. And you have like the aura around the screen go from like green to like a Madden camera shift. And now it turns orange. And now we're going to follow the Broncos. And like that, let's do it that way.
Or it could be like the clip of Zach Wilson. I don't know if you guys have seen the clip. It could be like the clip of Zach Wilson where they're determining what's a run and what's a pass. And they like turn to the clip of Zach Wilson going, "You're too easy, bro. You're too easy." Talking about like predicting like what's a run and a pass. After he throws the interception. So going back to the preseason and just talking briefly more about some of those positive players.
One positive. Go ahead. You go first.
I was going to say I'm going to kill you. The two players that I thought were, it's just our MO, Brendan. You know what's coming. The two players that I thought were the big positive. He's like watching intently to make sure I don't steal this player. Or two players. It's Essang Bassey and Jaquan McMillan. But I thought that, I said it before, I thought that Bassey's special teams play didn't get a lot of publicity from people, but I thought that in terms of the minute details, if you're Peyton, that's a play that will get you in high regard for guys like Vance Joseph, Christian Parker, and especially making this football team on that onside kick. So I thought that Bassey, and not just the onside kick, but also played exceptionally well. He had a big interception, as far as within that game. And also Jaquan McMillan. I know that some people have thought that he might be a nickel corner, which maybe some, there's probably some truth to that. I actually feel like if you go watch him and what he did in the Chargers game, it seems like he's a lot more comfortable being an outside corner than he is inside. And so what he was able to produce and stuff on that exterior as an outside corner in the preseason really has not surprised anyone. He's just continuing his momentum from last season.
You can't have too many good corners, and Jaquan McMillan is probably making this roster. Like at this point, he just keeps stringing together good games, and I love to see it.
And practices.
Also, Russ has been continuing to string together good practices. Apparently today was the best practice of.
Same with Dulcich.
And someone else too, who I'll get into here in a moment. But
who's our defensive coordinator?
McMillan. Oh yeah, Vance Joseph. Yeah,
we're known for having great practices with him.
I was gonna say, don't you fucking dare do it. Just shut up.
Matty is so back.
But no, Jaquan McMillan is just like, he's all over the place. He picked up right where he left off in the Chargers game. He just makes plays on the field. He had that like massive, like he basically blitzed from
sack, wasn't it?
5 yards deep and sacked one of their quarterbacks. I don't even know who it was.
It was Tuner McCoy.
It was probably, I don't even know.
I
But
thought it was David
anyway,
Blau, legend.
What's that?
Oh, Purdue legend.
Oh, Purdue legend. No, but he had a really good game. Like I'm really excited to see him play more. I don't think I still don't think you can have enough good corners. And if he plays and shows out, we already have PS2. Damari Mathis takes the step forward we're expecting him to take. And the rest of the room stays healthy. It'll be fun. But no, the guy that I was going to bring up that also had low-key a pretty good game and apparently had a really good practice today was Adam Troutman. Because Adam Troutman...
that was not who I thought you were going to say.
No, Adam Troutman definitely kind of showed why, at least I think, he's listed as a starter. And the main reason for that, a couple things. One, he's just a good blocker. Like, he's not a fantastic blocker. He's better than Dulcich, though. And the reason that it makes a difference is you can use him in so many ways. Like, I think I think I'm echoing what one of our guests said. I don't remember who it was, but like whoever predicted Adam Troutman is going to lead the tight end room in snaps. I completely agree with that now. Like Adam Troutman, you can use him on the line. You can bring him in. He can do some run blocking for you. You can have him leak out a little bit. They had one play where like he kind of faked the block and then leaked out, and they threw that tight end screen to him. And then he made like a 12-yard gain. Awesome play. He had a couple of nice other catches too. You can use him as a weapon, but you're not stuck in a situation where you put him out there. Like you put Chris Manhertz out there, you're running the ball. You put Chris Manhertz out there, the defense knows you're running the ball. You put Greg Dulcich out there, he's just not there as a blocker yet, unfortunately. Yeah. Like you put Greg Dulcich out there, it's a pass. That's all he can do. You put Albert Okwuegbunam out there, if he makes this roster, which I don't think he will at this point, it's a pass play. Like Greg Dulcich, at this point, it's basically like who has a higher ceiling, Greg Dulcich or Albert Okwuegbunam, and I think it's Greg Dulcich, and I think the team agrees. I don't think Alberto makes this roster at all. But Adam Troutman had a pretty good game, just in terms of like what you saw him to use him for and like what he did. That veteran presence that knows the Sean Payton system, which we just got another one today.
I was having Rich Scancarello vibes with that screen to the tight end.
The tight end screen? No. That would have been a tight end sweep.
That would have been a tight end sweep.
Oh, that's right. That's fair.
Yeah.
Which please, for the love of God, no.
Which
unless you give it to Greg Dulcich.
Yeah, the tight end sweep would have been to Greg Dulcich.
But the rule is if you give it to Greg Dulcich, he can't be tackled because you have to let him do it with no helmet on so you can watch the hair stream behind him.
Yeah.
That's the jet. That's the jet part of it.
It's funny, you mentioned Troutman because I kind of go back to, I know John, in the chat, and anybody that is in here, may recall this guy's name or both of these guys' names. But the one player in particular, like, I think this is what their plan was for a guy like Jeff Hireman, like to kind of be
Jeff Hireman.
To
I haven't heard that name.
To be kind of like the player that like that all-rounded type of player that can block, that can really do anything. And I think that we were starting to see somewhat of a glimpse of him when he was starting to kind of get, more comfortable and everything. And I think that, and ironically, he wore number 82, but I just think that with Troutman, you see a lot more of a comfortability with Troutman when he's in the lineup. And again, that's not a knock for Dulcich in the sense, like, the one thing that you can be able to do is actually this affords you, and Peyton mentioned this, you can use a lot more flexibility, with Dulcich in terms of you can spread him out wide and possibly use guys like Manhertz and or Troutman on the line and put Dulcich out wide as like a big slot receiver, right? And so, I mean, like, it gives you a lot more flexibility for guys like that for Greg Dulcich. I actually thought, go say what you're going to say, Matty.
Dulcich equals Jeremy Shockey type of role in this offense to me.
If you go look at Peyton's, we mentioned it before. I think, right, Brandon? I think we've mentioned this before, like with Greg Dulcich. If you look at with what he did, war number 80, but if you go look and you see what Shockey did, he had a couple 1,000-yard seasons under Sean Payton. And the first, like it was like 2006, 7, something like that. It was when he was early on into the league. He had like a couple years where he had 1,000 yards under Sean Payton and really revolutionized how the franchise tag is operated from the wide receiver tight end perspective. That's a fun little trivia for you. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, to kind of see what he can be able to do. How you doing, Big E? Thanks for
Jeremy
hopping in.
Shockey. You mean Eddard Stark? Jeremy Shockey looks weirdly like Sean Bean in Game of Thrones. But that's completely unrelated.
Oh,
comment.
Sorry. We should clarify. Not Jeremy Shockey, Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham is who I was thinking of. Not
you were thinking of Jimmy Graham, who's back in the league now, isn't he? Didn't he sign with the Saints? Oh my God,
yeah.
Jimmy Grandpa, 36 years old.
Yeah.
That's insane. I did not have that on my bingo.
The other guy that deserves a lot of props, and I know Bawana Beast mentioned Jordan Jackson, but it's in that same position group. And that would be a guy who decided to have his own Draymond Jones moment for a bit, and that would be Elijah Garcia, who had 2 sacks. Who had 2 sacks on one drive and really just shut that drive down. You want to make it back-to-back. You want to make a really big impression on Joseph and that entire defensive front, and especially guys like Marcus Dixon and anybody within that pass rush defensive front. You do stuff like that, you're going to be strongly noticed, so much that, and it isn't just obviously the Broncos, but other teams. So hats off to Garcia.
Desperately need more people to show up on that defensive line, with the complete lack of depth that has been unfortunately unveiled. That's not the word I was thinking. I couldn't think of the word I'm trying to use here, but with the injuries that have happened, and then, that whole situation of betting, the defensive line depth, it looks completely barren. So the more we can get there, the better. But he had a freakish few plays.
I met Jeremy Shockey.
Oh, he did meet Jeremy.
The guy who actually played tight end when they won the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, no, you met Jeremy Shockey. I think Cameron met
Yeah.
Jimmy Graham. His example.
Yeah.
No, Jimmy Shockey is a good. Jimmy Shockey. I just combined them. Jeremy Shockey is a good tight end. I just think he looks like. Sean B.
Okay.
Jeremy, Jimmy, they all sort of sound the same.
Anyway, Dolchich needs to learn how to high point a little better if he's going to be Jimmy Graham. But yeah,
and obviously dunk, right? On the goalpost, like he's gonna have to learn to do that too.
I think. So one other thing, just to
kind of tie a bow on all of it,
like the Cardinals blitzed the hell out of us, and like,
they
ran cover zero like 8 times
on the 4th and 7 play too.
Like, I don't know if
they show too much.
Did they what?
Did they show too much?
Did they show too much? I think they did it so much because they were beating the hell out of us. Like, they were just completely dismantling the offensive line, and they were like, okay, well, if we can win that and like give pressure by sending 4, let's just send everyone and shut the play down. Like, it was weird. But one just thought that I've had, and I know like I'm not the only person that thinks this, but you heard all camp about how much Zach Allen was like completely dominating. And I can't help but wonder if it's because he was dominating against this offensive line, but isn't actually that good, which is my worst nightmare.
Fake laugh, hiding real pain, right? Bring that back again.
We need a shirt that says that. I think that's great.
I think that's my most used GIF this year. If you guys want to look into how my 2023 is going.
So I think if there's any video clip that we can be able to pull, either you or me, Brandon, we can.
I will.
It's the Deadpool clip where
I will use it so many times though.
Yeah.
Fair.
But I was gonna say we would be remiss, Matty and Brandon, to talk about that running back room. We mentioned Samaje Perine, but we would be remiss if we didn't talk about. If we didn't at least talk about Jaleel McFlyen.
McFlyen. No. Jaleel McLaughlin. I can't even pronounce it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, with the G. Yeah.
Were they?
But McLaughlin, Tyler Beatty was there. It's a very interesting room. It is a very interesting room. So Beatty,
we just signed
Dwayne Washington.
Yeah.
I think that's, by the way, just real quick, I think that screams the loss of Tony Jones. I think Tony Jones is out. And also, I think it screams the idea that we've been having for about a week or so now, that I think they're carrying 4 running backs. I think they're carrying 4.
I wonder if they are also bringing him in to compete as a returner.
Maybe, but I also think that he's a special teams specialist, and maybe that's just as a.
That's why I say that.
But I don't know as a returner, but I think maybe like as a gunner or someone that they can.
They seem to want to try out a lot of guys back there as a returner.
Hey, Washington on punt returns look good though.
He did.
He seems to do that every year, but apparently, like I don't know. I guess they don't feel the same way or something. But
but
also Jalen Virgil is having some nice games. But
he had a nice 25-yard gain, and he's been stacking up practices.
Well, this whole offense has been stacking good practices, which makes me very happy.
Yeah. Anything else, or do you guys want to jump right into the 49ers
real quick? I'll talk about Clayton's question. What are a few players to really, really watch? So one is Drew Sanders. I think that they're going to line up. They're going to have some packages for him to come in and be disruptive. He can certainly get after the quarterback, a lot of closing speed. He's going to be a fun player that might make some impact plays, similar to how the Money Badger did in his rookie year, just kind of in the right place at the right time. Sticking on that side of the ball, one of the guys that's been killing it in camp, Jonathan Cooper, Agent Zero, which is really dope to see on a jersey at number 0. Cooper's been a stud in practice. Again, maybe it's because of our weak bookends on the offensive line.
No, he was a stud in the game too. That was confirmed.
And so and Nick Benito is a guy who seems like he's really getting it. That's going without really talking about, Allen. That's going without talking about Randy Gregory. Like Joseph said, that 1 to 6, this might be the most talented edge room he's had. And we thought that was lip service. It actually might be true. So the depth we have at edge is killer.
The other thing I was going to say, though, is that's not bias for Matty. I mean, I know that he's a Boomer Sooner, but Benito has been absolutely shining in camp. And obviously we've talked about that, but that's from practice takeaways. But to see that in a game, and granted it was against the Cardinals, but still, like, in order for Benito to play well, he's going to use the term of the day, it's I guess a Jenga reference, but like stack up multiple different preseasons, for a guy like Benito. So he's definitely going to be able to do this. And especially, this is a nice little transition for the 49ers game. A deep team like the 49ers, they have to be able to play exceptionally well. And so one of the big things that I'm certainly watching out for is this offensive line, because you're talking about the offensive line going up against the 49ers and that defensive front. They need a bounce back, and again, we're talking about preseason, but like if there was ever a must, I guess you could quantify this as like a must-win performance from the offensive line perspective in preseason. But like if you were to label it as such like that, this is like a must-win performance for the offensive line to perform at a very high level going up against those 49ers defensive line. Now, Grant, I don't know if Bosa's going to play or Armstead's going to play, or how long they'll play, but you're still talking about a very deep 49ers room.
Can we please go 13 personnel all game while we have Russ in there? Because the way he got killed against that pitiful Cardinals defense, oh my God, I'm scared.
Yeah.
The amount of tape that coaching staff is making that offensive line watch, it must be legalized torture at this point.
Yeah. So it'll definitely be interesting. And also it's worth pointing out that this is preseason, but Russ also owns the 49ers, like record wise. So for some reason he just always plays well against the 49ers.
Maybe that's like how he recharges. Like every time he plays the 49ers, he just looks great, and then he's back up to like old level Russ again. I mean, like if we play the 49ers and then we come back and then Russ is like borderline MVP level Russ again, that's the secret.
That was the problem last year. I guzzled the Kool-Aid after Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, after the 49er game.
Right after, I was like, man, like, we got this. We beat the Niners. Let's go. And that was it. We should
didn't he?
The season right there.
He had that game-winning drive.
Was that the game? I can't remember if that was. For some reason, I thought he was injured. Was that the one where he was injured?
No.
And missed part of the game? Okay, never mind. My entire theory is wrong.
That was the Chiefs game.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah,
never mind. That 49ers recharge doesn't work, unfortunately. Never mind. That's too bad.
But definitely to talk about some of the players to watch, I'm excited to see how long the starters play even more, right? So that's something that Sean Payton said. So obviously with the Broncos starters playing somewhat into the second quarter, I would imagine, it seems like Sean Payton said this on 5280, is operating in like the old school fashion, which is like the second preseason game is going to basically have the starters play a fair amount, right? Which in turn is almost like the third preseason game at that. So the second preseason game, you'll see them operate, with that. Yeah, so I'm curious about that. And obviously maybe this is number one, right? And this is obviously due to health, but obviously number one, Javonte Williams. And this comes from Sean Cohen about Javonte healthy, and obviously the offensive line getting their stuff together. Selfishly, I don't want Javonte Williams to play, but I know that due to his knee and everything, you need to get him in football shape and football ready. So what would you guys, and people that are in the chat, what would you guys actually quantify as like needed snaps for Javonte Williams?
I am scared of that entire situation because on the one hand, like you absolutely you have to let him play in a game. Yeah. But also I'm like, if he goes out there, he gets 6 yards, I'm pulling him for the rest of the game. It's like he has one good run. Okay, yep, you're good. Let's come back.
Yeah.
It's actually insane how that he's 100% already. That's like ridiculous. Go ahead, Matty.
2 things have to happen. 1, he needs to get hit. So mentally he can say, I got hit. I'm good. Let's dance. 2, he needs to hit somebody. Because I know dude's got some frustration. He's got some aggression. The dude lives for contact. Like, he needs that. And ideally that happens on the same play. Like, he gets hit, but he hits them harder than he gets hit. And he's like, all right, bet. I'm back. And then he gets out of the game. That's it. It's more mental probably at this point for him than anything else. Yeah. He needs to believe he's back and he's healthy.
Well, I think
he needs to cut on that leg and take some contact and then like, yep, we're good. It's good.
It's a nice little callback to what we just referenced for Matty in terms of thinking that he's back. It needs to be like the John Wick clip, where it's basically like, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back. Like after he like truly like punishes a guy. So I think that that would definitely line up well. But I again, like selfishly, I would love, if he is in the game, to just give like a fullback trap to Burton. Like use it as a decoy and, and give it to Burton for the fullback trap. But obviously, yes, he's going to need that contact. He basically, it may sound like a lot, but he's going to need to do almost like the 5-yard run that we saw from P. Ryan in preseason for us to be like, okay, yeah, it seems like he's really that 100% that we've actually seen, which is, absorbing contact, fighting through contact, and getting those yards after contact, which we all know that when Javonte was really good and truly on that verge of that breakout before the injury, it was that yards after contact was like a big statistic for Javonte. So that may be number one aside from even the offensive line. So what about some other things that you guys are looking out for?
Well, so besides tackles specifically, I want to see McMillan just keep stacking those games.
We have a theme
here. If he has another good game against the 49ers, I already think he's making the roster, but if he does it again, I'm going to feel so good about this cornerback room. It's
even Bassey, because that goes to both of them. So, I'm going to do a nice little switch here and transition on this. Because obviously there's more players, that in terms of wanting them to play really well. But I will actually go to the quarterback room. I'm actually curious about the quarterback room of the San Francisco 49ers because so much has been made about what is going on with that San Francisco 49ers room. I know that Shanahan mentioned that it would take a almost like an apocalypse for Purdy to lose that job right now.
Trey Lance would have to, or no, he would have to.
A meltdown.
He would have to melt. No. I think literally melt, not a meltdown. Melt. He has to, like Olaf melt physically. He's dead.
That's
not a good sign.
And if you're Trey Lance, not to you. So this is the thing that is interesting. And if there's one person that actually can help him through this, it's the quarterback that they traded for, which I thought was quite interesting that they traded for him or signed him, I should say, and that'd be Sam Darnold. It looks actually like if you watch Trey Lance right now, that he is truly seeing ghosts. And if there's one player that can actually help him get through that, it would be Darnold. I just think that, if you look at it from that point of view, I'm be really curious to see what Lance can play at the level that he can. Because, for instance, let's just say, that the Broncos may want to call on Lance in the future. You would want to do your best to not just advertise yourself for the 49ers, but advertise yourself for Sean Payton. So I think that would be a nice little advertising tool. So I'm looking actually at the quarterback room personally.
I've gotten absolutely obliterated for suggesting that the Broncos should trade for Lance. And I don't understand why. Because no one apparently has any ability to think about the reasoning behind why someone would have this take. I'm not saying trade a first-round pick for Trey. They're not getting a first-round pick for Trey Lance. They're not getting much of a pick for Trey Lance at this point.
They might not get a day 2 pick.
They might not get any picks for Trey Lance. Literally, they might have to cut him at this point. You gave up all that capital to trade up to 3 and get him. You don't even let him play. When he does play, he just blatantly looks like he needs practice. He needs the reps in game, and you won't give them to him. This guy has 102 career passes in the NFL. That's not enough.
Not even enough to call him a bust.
In college, he barely played. This guy desperately just needs to play in games. And the reason that I suggest that we trade for him, one, I would give them a late pick, maybe. Again, they've kind of played their hand. I don't know how they can ever lie to themselves and think we can get a first-round pick for no. Because if you trade a late round pick for him, you just have him on the bench. You let Russ go out there and do his best. If Russ is truly washed, which from what we've seen so far, I don't think that's the case. But if Russ is truly washed, the rest of the season, what are you going to do? Who else are you going to get? You're going to punt the rest of the season, just put Ben DiNucci out there? Jarrett's to them, he can't play.
Yeah.
throw Trey Lance out there, let him play the rest of the season, let him get all the game reps that he clearly needs to get, and see if there's anything there. If he continues to be absolutely horrible, you get a high pick. You don't have to keep him, get rid of him, draft his replacement. If he proves that there's at least something there, but he's still bad, get a high pick, have a competition. You have two potential high ceiling guys that are really, gifted physically. It can't hurt to have both of them.
Right. Or
he puts it all together because he desperately needs to play in games and he's good. Like, I don't understand the hate that take gets. Like, it's literally there's no downside. There is no downside at all.
You were going to say something.
Either get a guy who works out or he doesn't work out and he's gone.
You were going to say something, Matty?
Go ahead.
5 for 15 for 50 yards, 3.3 average, no touchdowns, 1 interception, and a sack for 3 yards with a rating of 16.0. That was our quarterback that we acquired this year in free agency, Jarrett Stidham.
Decent
definitely not going to be calling him Jarrett Studham anytime soon with those kind of numbers. There's no downside.
Ben DiNucci's better than Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah, I did it all for DiNucci. What? DiNucci. What? So you can bring that cookie. Yeah, guy. So, I mean, I would feel better about him being our backup right now than what I saw out of Stidham. If we can go get Lance, like, Peyton can't make special packages for him to come in around the goal line, maybe. I don't know. I mean, he got Taysom Hill.
Go get Lance and I was going to say, get Lance and use him just like Taysom Hill.
Use him like Jalen Hurts a little bit. Now, I'm not saying Duke can deadlift like Jalen or whatever, or squat, but like, you could do stuff with him that you wouldn't want to do with Russ, and that's fine. And that's just like a bare minimum, right? That's using him as an athlete and a football player, not really as a quarterback. Well, it's shocking to me that Shanahan hasn't been able to unlock more for Trey Lance, but like Peyton can. And if anybody can really, I mean, it should be Peyton. I think there's no downside to it besides the money he gets for being in that rookie scale slot. Yeah, but you can make the 49ers give us cash considerations for some of that. And then you give them, say, a 5th round pick or even a 4th round pick to let them save face, and they pay like 60% of his salary for next year. Bet, let's roll with that.
So going back a little bit to the Niners game, Clayton goes a bit and he says, here's what I think, guys. We pound that football all game, give Russ time with play action, and then bam, Russ is going to shine now on defense, man-to-man, bring down our safety, blitz all day. Maybe even those 3 shutdown corners, more interceptions, tons of sacks. That's kind of what he was going off of. And then he even says that, and this is probably a season prediction, but that also leaves us top 5 in both categories. It's lofty, certainly. But I mean, hey, if you're top 5 in both offense and defensive categories, you're sitting pretty, and you're sitting, in double-digit wins territory. So I'm digging that orange Kool-Aid. I don't know if I will drink it, but I'm definitely digging that orange Kool-Aid. Clayton. But I think that. So again, going back to as Sean even says, I just want a coaching staff for more than 2 years. I will say, if Sean Payton is not a Denver Broncos head coach, after this year, then there's a problem. So I will guarantee the fact that Sean Payton will be the Broncos coach for more than 2 years. But
I think he's our coach till he retires. That's where we're at this point.
Right.
And hopefully it's not next year.
And hopefully it's not next. Hopefully it's not so bad we drive him to retirement.
And he's wearing bucket hats on the beach.
Right. Right. Or the visor and the bucket,
Sean Payton's not even 60. Pete Carroll's 71. We got some time.
Yeah, definitely some time. So here, some of my thoughts, I think, for Trey Lance, because I think that the Trey Lance thing it's fascinating to me, and you guys outlined a lot of it. You guys, I know I tweeted it. Brandon tweeted it.
Brandon first.
Brandon actually got a lot of crap for it.
And everyone hated me for it.
But he's like, the thing is, at the end of the day, the move for Trey Lance is a low risk, high reward. And I think that's the thing that people need to remember is it's low risk because you're talking about a player that he's just not right. And it's very clear that he's not fit for the 49ers. Now, I will say, yes, it is a negative that if he's not going to be able to work with Kyle Shanahan, it does beg the question, is he going to work with some of those other, systems that are out there? But that said, the nail in the coffin for him would be if the Broncos trade for Lance, the nail in the coffin would be, well, if he's not going to be able to work with Sean Payton, then he's not going to be lasting in the NFL anytime soon.
Yeah.
But
if Kyle Shanahan and Sean Payton can't fix Trey Lance or do anything with Trey Lance, then he's just gone.
And not to mention, we're talking about a quarterback itself that that has all the tools as both a runner and a passer. There was a reason why a lot of people, as much as they called him a project, were calling him to a certain extent like the Anthony Richardson that we saw in this last draft. And the one thing that the 49ers sadly did not do was they did not play him right away. And in terms of playing right away, committing to him as the starter full time. And that's one of the reasons why the Anthony Richardson move, as much as I don't like what Indianapolis is doing with Jonathan Taylor or even stuff that they've done with the Colts quarterbacks previous, Brendan and I talked about in some previous episodes, but it's just like it was the right move for them to commit to start Richardson. And of all the people to know that, Steichen should know that because of what they were able to do with Jalen Hurts. But as far as Lance, you're talking about a quarterback situation that is absolutely one that, especially given the Taysom Hill interest, you can use him in certain packages. And also, the trade for Trey Lance does not take you out of drafting a quarterback in 2024.
No, that's my whole point.
Exactly. So it doesn't take you out of that. And so with you wanting to be interested in guys like Drake May, Shedeur Sanders, Michael Penix Jr., some of those guys that you might be interested in, that's not going to take you at all from that train as far as getting another quarterback like that. Absolutely, I'm all for it. Again, it's a low risk, high reward move for you.
Like, one of the things that it's just saying that people hate this move so much. I don't even think it's a manner of Kyle Shanahan can't get him to play well. I think it's just what Kyle Shanahan likes to do and wants to do in his offense is not what Trey Lance is good at doing. Like Kyle Shanahan, this is why Brock Purdy is having success. I don't even think Brock Purdy is an amazing quarterback. You go back and watch his throws. He's throwing to guys that end up being insanely open, and he's just a great timing and rhythm passer. Get to the spot. This is where the guy's going to be. Throw it there. And Trey Lance can't do that. That's just not Trey Lance's game. But that's Brock Purdy's game. So that's why Brock Purdy looks good, and they want to use Brock Purdy in that system because he fits the system. He doesn't want to change the system, which he would have to do if he wants to play Trey Lance. I'm not saying Kyle Shanahan's a bad quarterback because he doesn't want to change the system to fit his quarterback, or a bad coach because he doesn't want to change the system to fit his quarterback. But, I mean, you have a guy that fits the system perfectly that's shown that you can win with him. You're not going to throw it all away and go to the guy that you probably can't win with right away because you're already winning. Like, that just doesn't sell. But you know who else wasn't a timing and rhythm quarterback when they came in the NFL? And for the love of God, I'm going to get so many people that are bashing me for this one because you'll see in a minute. Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
I am not in any way, shape, or form saying that Trey Lance is Josh Allen. Let me just give you a disclaimer on that first. But Josh Allen was not that kind of passer either. He likes to take shots. He likes to play big. He likes to throw it into tight windows. Like, he's not that guy who's like, oh, I'm going to get back and he's turned into that guy, but he wasn't that guy in the middle or in his rookie season when he came to the league. He wasn't that guy that's like, okay, well, I'm going to take this 3-step drop and I'm going to read this and then this guy's going to be there. And he's not that rhythm guy, or he wasn't. And Trey Lance is not that rhythm guy. But that's what Kyle Shanahan's offense is. That's all I'm saying.
So this is a
you can't just ride it. You can't throw them out.
This is a nice little closing topic, and thanks to John for putting it in the comments about this. So tomorrow is going to be the last day of camp tomorrow for fans. For fans, I should have put for fans in there. I hate, I hate that I missed that. But anyway, it's for fans.
Last day of open camp.
Yeah, last day of open camp for fans. What is your guys' overall takeaway? Obviously, Matty, you don't live in Colorado, but obviously, you've noticed, I'm sure, on social media and everything, with the fact that the restrictions and everything, and this being truly like the first year.
Obviously, you don't live in Colorado,
That's
so
right.
you're quite a peasant, and you don't get to quite experience the same things that the rest of the fans do. Listen, I understand the restrictions too. Like if the fans can't go there, then the media can't give like play-by-play and all that stuff. And it's really been tightened up. Let's go. This is a business, and we are professionals, and we have games against other professionals that if they don't take their reps as serious as we take our reps, then we beat them over time. I love this mindset. I love it. We've checked the box. Good job. The fans got to go out. Russell Wilson pumped everybody else up. They got to see Dulcich in his locks. They got to see 33 on the field. Like, we've gotten to see some cool stuff. Because I'm a peasant. I get it, right?
I obviously,
but now it's time to get to business. And we had pomp and circumstance and all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
And
the raw.
We had Sudeikis as head coach on the sidelines. Like, just believe, like, all that stuff doesn't work. Let's get back down to basics. Let's run the football, power, be physical. Mental reps matter, so be engaged. We're going to win on the margins. We're not going to beat ourselves, and we're taking away distractions. So the fans, congratulations, you got to see it, whatever. The media, you still get access to whatever, but like, you're keeping stuff zipped or you're out of the building. Love it. Finally, we have an adult in the house, and we're going to start knowing what our boundaries are, and then we can grow and flourish. Beautiful. Love it.
What about you, Brandon?
I was just like engrossed in what Matty was saying. What was the question?
Just thoughts as far as, this being
so glad he's back. The end of the open camp. Yeah. I just like zoned out for a minute because Matty's so intoxicating.
I love you.
It was a great monologue. Jay Leno would
I just want to see, at the risk of using this too many times, I want to see the offense close this thing out with the bang and have yet another good consecutive week of practice. Like, momentum is a true thing. And actually, I think this is honestly going to be, well, again, it's not the end of camp overall, but when we get to the end of camp, you don't want to see, it start to crash. Like, you don't want to start to build up all this momentum and then have 4 bad weeks in a row, or 4 bad days in a row. 4 bad weeks, that would be horrific. 4 bad days in a row.
Terrible.
Like, we would be absolutely screwed. 4 bad days in a row going into the season. Like, that's just not how you want to start the season. You want to end it on a high note. And I know it continues beyond tomorrow, but just to give the fans some hope as well. Like,
a little bit of hope.
Just a little bit, just slightly, because we've had none for 84 years. That's all I want to see. I want to see the offense continue to do it. I want people to tell me that Javonte Williams is in a bubble of body armor. I just want everyone to have fun. Just kidding. I want everyone to be good.
If there's one thing that I will say that I don't know if this would fly under the Sean Payton era of now things going forward with training camp. But I have always loved having practices at the stadium, like a scrimmage or an open practice at the stadium. And I would like to see Sean Payton, if he can, bring that back. So I think from my vantage point, I would like to see, that happen. And I think what would be curious is come next year with the limited fans, what are they going to do as far as, are they going to keep it at the 3,000 limit, or are they going to, expand it, as far as, with everything with the fans. So that's a couple of the things that I'm curious about, because maybe this was a trial run as far as like, everything that they were able to, do and everything. Yes. Listen to Richie Rich, by the way, like the video, share, comment, tell your friends, have your friends tell your friends about the Manely Broncos podcast.
Kevin, I just clicked that comment at the same time and everything exploded.
It's okay. Hey, but did it though? It's like searching Google within Google. Did it explode? No.
Not yet.
Not yet.
What if I go to Google and I search Bing?
It won't explode. No, it won't explode.
We'll find out.
So
Bada
Sean,
bing, bada boom.
Yeah, so Sean adds, he says, this is game 2 of the preseason. They're still keeping it pretty vanilla, but we definitely need to see some of that. And this goes back to what we were talking about with the offense. In terms of like with everything that we'd seen with the amount that Russell Wilson was getting hit, are we going to see a little bit of a taste, like a little bit more of a taste, as far as like what Sean Payton wants to do? And by the way, we didn't get a chance to talk about this, but I guess he was on NFL radio on Sirius, Payton, and he talked a little bit about Russell Wilson, and he was going back and he was watching a lot of the Russell Wilson tapes going back to Seattle, and he highlighted a lot of the things that Russ has done so well, which is off script. And, in terms of like those boots, or when he does those boots, and at that moment he gets to be off script and he's an off script quarterback. I think that is one of the areas that is going to make Russell Wilson such a dynamic quarterback again, if we can get to that, which is one of the reasons why another Boomer Sooner wide receiver and Marvin Mims is going to be maybe filling in that Tyler Lockett role, or maybe the Brandon Cooks type of role for Sean Payton. So it's going to be really interesting to see how all of this offense meshes, especially with the chemistry that he's already had with Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. It appears like he's in terms of ready for his bounce back. So Boomer, right?
Sooner.
We may have an Oklahoma Sooner fan in the chat.
He's back.
Yeah. Yeah, he is definitely back.
Just the Harry Potter scene where they walk in and see Voldemort leaving. He's back.
100%. Yeah, Rich, we talked about it earlier in terms of offensive line being the biggest issue. That was the biggest takeaway from not just the Cardinals preseason game, but also with what we're going to be looking out for against the 49ers, especially up that the vaunted 49ers front, and some of the things that we're going to be looking out for.
The somewhat vaunted 49ers front, because I don't
preseason,
think,
yes.
Well, no, I mean, I don't think they'll have Nick Bosa.
No, yeah, or maybe even Armstead, right? They may not even have Armstead. Well, gents, any parting thoughts? As we round up the podcast, Matty, it's been a while, and so any parting thoughts aside from yelling at the top of your lungs, Boomer Sooner again? But any parting thoughts? And of course, horns down. Any parting thoughts?
I love you guys. I missed you guys. I love whiskey. I don't have to miss whiskey because it's always there. And I'm really excited for this year, and I hope I don't get punched in the face for being excited for this year. The mention
only
of
for suggesting that we trade for Trey Lance.
The 84 years comment hits home so well. Hopefully we find the jewelry at the end of the journey. Yeah. Just like in that movie. And yeah, there's reason to be optimistic we're not going to be embarrassed and we're not going to beat ourselves. And that's a lot more than we've had to say lately. Mine is Scotch, but Richie, good on you, Canadian whiskey. So maybe the Kirkland brand. No, Glimmering 12. So there you go.
Corn or rye bourbon?
Typically, it would be corn because I'm in Nebraska. So I get tarred and feathered if I don't say everything is corn. I love corn. It's corn. So yeah.
Clayton looks like he wants to, so he's probably asking us, so do we personally think the playbook, he hides the playbook, and I'm guessing in preseason number 2 or just straight up the playbook and everything. So what do you guys think? Do you actually think that he hides it still a little bit, or do we see samples and appetizers?
I think every team goes into preseason keeping it as vanilla as humanly possible. Like, I think maybe some of the things that you see them run are variations of some of the plays that are in the playbook, maybe just even the formations, just for like live reps in that formation. But I do think that they go into it with like hey, this is the vanilla offense we're going to run. Like, every team plays a simplified scheme in the preseason.
I think we're all in agreement. I think that it would definitely be something where I think you'll see some snippets of what it's going to look like. Maybe some of those off script plays with Russ, and maybe some of that, more of that ground and pound to help soften some of the pressure that we had seen to Russell Wilson in preseason number 1. So I think that, you will see some of the stuff that you may be seeing during the regular season. But I agree. I think it'll be rather vanilla. So with that, we want to wish you guys a fantastic rest of your night. But thank you first and foremost for tuning in to another episode of the Manely Broncos podcast. And make sure that, as always, when you guys are checking this podcast out, follow the guys here. Follow Brandon. His Twitter handle is right there in the top right corner. It is at Brandon Miller PO. Follow Matty at Matty Mulls Pod. He does that fantastic podcast about the Oklahoma City Thunder, as we mentioned earlier.
That's gotta be the best podcast name of all time.
Yeah, so go check that out. Follow myself at Cameron Parker PO, and the cat is out of the bag. Go follow Brandon and I on the show handle, which is at Manely Broncos, and my personal handle, which is at Cameron Parker PO. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode of the show. Go Broncos.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, go.